How a street dog finally found a home despite all the rejection. The rain hammered against the cardboard box like angry fists. Inside, a small brown dog named Charlie pressed himself against the soggy walls, his amber eyes reflecting the harsh streetlight that flickered above. 3 years on these streets had taught him many things: how to find food in the darkest corners, how to avoid the dog catchers, how to survive another cold night. But tonight was different. Tonight, Charlie wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for something he'd never had before: hope. The sound of footsteps echoed through the alley, growing closer. Charlie's ears perked up, his heart racing. He'd been rejected 17 times by 17 different families. Each time, they'd looked at his scruffy coat, his missing left ear, the scar running down his side, and they turned away. But maybe, just maybe, the 18th time would be different. Charlie's world was a maze of concrete and shadows. The downtown streets of Portland were unforgiving, especially for a dog who looked like he'd been through a war. His brown fur was matted from years of rain and neglect. His left ear had been torn off in a fight with a much larger dog when he was just a puppy. The scar on his side told the story of a car that had clipped him while he was searching for food. But Charlie's eyes. His eyes held something that 3 years of rejection couldn't destroy. They held kindness, they held intelligence, they held an unwavering belief that somewhere in this cold world, there was a place for him. Every morning, Charlie would position himself outside the local animal shelter. Not inside, where the other strays were kept in cages, but outside. He'd learned that families preferred to choose their pets, not have them thrust upon them. So he'd sit patiently, watching as family after family walked past him toward the shelter entrance. The shelter workers knew Charlie well. Sarah, the volunteer coordinator, had tried countless times to bring him inside. "You'll have a better chance in here, buddy," she'd say, kneeling down to pet his head. But Charlie always found a way back to his spot on the sidewalk. He had a plan, and he was going to stick to it. The conflict began on a Tuesday morning in November. Charlie had been at his usual spot for 4 hours when he saw them. A young couple, maybe in their 30s, walking slowly toward the shelter. The woman had kind eyes and moved with a gentle grace. The man held her hand protectively, scanning the area with careful attention. This was it. Charlie could feel it in his bones. These were his people. He stood up, shook the rain from his coat, and positioned himself directly in their path. Not aggressively, but hopefully. His tail wagged slowly, and he tilted his head in that way that had charmed shopkeepers into giving him scraps. The woman stopped. "Oh, David, look at this sweet boy." Charlie's heart soared. She was talking to him. About him. In a voice that didn't carry pity or disgust, but genuine affection. David looked down at Charlie, and for a moment, Charlie saw something in his eyes. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. But then David's expression changed. His jaw tightened, and he gently pulled his wife's hand. "Come on, Lisa, we talked about this. We want a puppy, something young and healthy." Lisa's eyes met Charlie's one more time. Charlie saw the conflict there, the way her heart was pulling her in one direction while her mind pushed her in another. "But David, he's so sweet. Look at those eyes." "Lisa." David's voice was firm but not unkind. "We've been planning this for months. We want to start fresh. A puppy we can train from the beginning." Charlie watched as they walked into the shelter, leaving him alone on the sidewalk once again. But this time felt different. This time, the rejection cut deeper than all the others combined. Because for the first time in 3 years, Charlie had truly believed. The days that followed were the hardest of Charlie's life. The November rain turned to December snow, and his cardboard shelter became a frozen trap. But the physical cold was nothing compared to the emotional frost that had settled over his heart. Charlie stopped positioning himself outside the shelter. Instead, he retreated deeper into the alley, away from the families and their searching eyes. Sarah noticed his absence immediately and came looking for him. "Charlie, what are you doing back here?" she asked, finding him curled up behind a dumpster. "You can't give up now. Your family is out there." But Charlie had heard those words before. 17 times before. And now, after seeing the look in David's eyes, after feeling Lisa's torn heart, he understood something he hadn't before. He wasn't just fighting against his appearance or his age. He was fighting against people's dreams of perfection. Sarah sat down in the snow next to him, not caring that her jeans were getting soaked. "I know it's hard, buddy. I know you're tired. But I've been doing this for 10 years, and I've never seen a dog with more love to give than you. She pulled out her phone and showed Charlie a photo. This is my dog, Rex. I found him in an alley, just like this one. He was 8 years old, missing an eye, and had been hit by a car. Nobody wanted him either. She scrolled to another photo. This is Rex now, 5 years later. He's the best thing that ever happened to me. Charlie looked at the photos, then at Sarah's face. Her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. The right family isn't looking for perfect, Charlie. They're looking for you. But even Sarah's kindness couldn't completely heal the wound in Charlie's heart. He returned to his spot outside the shelter, but something had changed. His tail wagged less enthusiastically. His eyes held more caution. He'd learned that hope was dangerous, and rejection was the price of dreaming. Week after week, families passed by. Some stopped to pet him. Others took photos. A few even inquired about adoption. But when they learned about his age, his medical history, his street background, they all made the same choice. They all walked away. Christmas came and went. Charlie spent it alone in his alley, listening to the sounds of families celebrating in the warm houses around him. New Year's Eve was the same. By January, Charlie had stopped counting the rejections. He'd stopped hoping. He'd simply started existing. It was a gray February morning when everything changed. Charlie was lying in his usual spot, barely lifting his head when people walked by. He'd been sick for 3 days, and Sarah had been begging him to let her take him to the vet. But Charlie was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of hoping. Tired of being disappointed. That's when he heard the voice. "Daddy, look! It's the doggy!" Charlie lifted his head weakly and saw a small girl, maybe 6 years old, running toward him. Behind her, a man in a wheelchair was rolling as fast as he could, calling out, "Emma, wait! Don't run off like that!" The little girl dropped to her knees in front of Charlie, completely ignoring the fact that he was dirty and sick. "Hi, doggy. Are you okay? You look sad." Charlie's tail gave the faintest wag. There was something about this child, something pure and unafraid, that touched the part of his heart he'd been trying to protect. The man in the wheelchair caught up to them. "Emma, we need to be careful. We don't know if he's friendly." "He is friendly, Daddy. Look at his eyes." Charlie looked up at the man, and what he saw there took his breath away. The man wasn't looking at Charlie's scars or his matted fur. He was looking into his eyes, just like his daughter had asked him to. "What's your name, buddy?" the man asked softly. Sarah appeared from inside the shelter, having heard the commotion. "His name is Charlie. He's been coming here for 3 years." "3 years?" Emma's voice was incredulous. "Nobody wanted him for 3 years?" "Well, honey," Sarah said gently, "Charlie's a little older, and he's had a hard life. Some people want younger dogs." Emma stood up, her small hands on her hips. "That's silly. Old dogs need love too." The man in the wheelchair introduced himself as Mike and Emma as his daughter. As they talked with Sarah, Charlie learned their story. Mike had been in an accident 2 years ago that had left him paralyzed. Emma's mother had left shortly after, unable to cope with the changes in their life. "We came here because Emma's been asking for a dog," Mike explained. "But honestly, I wasn't sure we were ready. I can't exactly chase a puppy around the yard." "But Charlie's not a puppy," Emma said, sitting back down next to Charlie. "He's perfect for us." Mike looked at his daughter, then at Charlie. "The thing is, we're not exactly the perfect family either. I can't walk. Emma's mom isn't in the picture. We live in a small apartment. We don't have a yard." Sarah smiled. "Mike, can I tell you something? Charlie doesn't care about any of that. He's been rejected by 17 families who thought they were perfect. But you know what? He's not looking for perfect. He's looking for love." Mike wheeled closer to Charlie. "You know what, buddy? So are we." That's when Charlie understood. The twist that changed everything wasn't that he'd finally found the perfect family. It was that he'd found the perfectly imperfect family. Mike and Emma weren't looking for a show dog or a status symbol. They were looking for exactly what Charlie was. A soul who understood that love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other despite the scars. 6 months later, Charlie lay on his favorite spot on the living room floor, watching Emma do her homework at the kitchen table. Mike was in his chair nearby, helping her with math problems. The apartment was small, just like Mike had said, but it was filled with something Charlie had never experienced before: unconditional love. Charlie's coat was clean now, soft and shiny from regular baths and good nutrition. His scars were still there, but they'd become part of his story rather than barriers to his happiness. The missing ear had become Emma's favorite spot to scratch, and she told everyone at school that it made Charlie look like a pirate. "Charlie," Emma called from the table. "Come here, boy." Charlie got up slowly. He was still an older dog, and his joints reminded him of that fact every day. But he walked over to Emma with his tail wagging, because that's what families do, they answer when called. Emma wrapped her arms around Charlie's neck. "Daddy, tell me again about the day we found Charlie." Mike smiled. "You mean the day Charlie found us?" "Yeah, that day." Mike reached down to pet Charlie's head. "Well, we went to the shelter looking for a dog. But what we really found was a missing piece of our family." Charlie closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of Emma's hug and Mike's gentle touch. He thought about all those months on the street, all those rejections, all that pain, and he realized something beautiful. Every no had led him to the right yes. Every closed door had guided him to the one that would open. That night, as Charlie curled up on the bed between Mike and Emma, he reflected on his journey. He'd learned that home isn't a place where you're perfect. Home is a place where you're loved despite your imperfections. Home is where your scars become stories, your flaws become features, and your past becomes the foundation for a beautiful future. Charlie had spent 3 years looking for a home. What he'd found was something even better. He'd found a family that needed him just as much as he needed them. And in the end, that made all the difference. As sleep took over, Charlie's last thought was one of gratitude. Not just for Mike and Emma, but for every person who had said no, because their rejections had been redirections, guiding him toward the love that was always meant to be his. Sometimes the best things in life are worth waiting for. Sometimes the perfect family is the one that's perfectly imperfect. And sometimes, a street dog with scars and missing pieces is exactly what a broken family needs to become whole again. If Charlie's story touched your heart the way it touched ours, we'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Have you ever witnessed an act of unexpected kindness from an animal? Or maybe you have your own rescue story to share. Stories like Charlie's remind us that heroism comes in all shapes and sizes. And sometimes the smallest acts of courage make the biggest difference. If you enjoyed this journey with Charlie, Mike, and Emma, consider subscribing to our channel for more heartwarming stories that celebrate the incredible bond between humans and animals. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful tales of hope, loyalty, and love. And who knows, your own story might inspire our next episode. Until next time, remember that even in our darkest moments, we all have the power to be someone's hero.